before we get to the load shedding, yesterday we had the announcement of the ECG MD, the legal practitioner, Dubik Mahama. But I saw a post. First of all, confirm whether it's indeed your post. A post where you had indicated that he was being pushed because he wasn't complying with something. I think this was just before the announcement of his resignation came up. Was that your verified account? Is that your post?
Yes, Randy, exactly so. I posted about 5 or 10 minutes before the announcement came out because I had gotten information that some people related to the president insisted on procuring light crude oil in a certain manner, which Dubik, the MD for ECG, resisted. Because when ECG and the other stakeholders in the energy sector appeared before the Mines and Energy Committee somewhere in May, June, the cause of the load shedding then was inadequate fuel. Because this government hasn't added any infrastructure to the gas processing plant they inherited, and I can confirm to you that not even 1 kilometer of pipeline has been added to what this government inherited. Now demand has stripped the supply of gas. And so there's a deficit of about 60 scuff. So they have to procure light crude oil at about $40 million every month. That translates to about $180 million by the time this year ends. But that is not even the problem. The key problem is who procures the light crude oil. We've maintained that VRA, being the lead agency in the generation sector, should rather be procuring the light crude oil for the other entities. But when Ken Ofori Atta was minister, he insisted that the procurement is done directly under his instructions, and ECG is then instructed to pay directly without recourse to the cash waterfall mechanism. And you and I recall that PRC has been up in arms with ECG because when they do that, they no longer adhere to the principle of the cash waterfall mechanism. And so recently, Dubik has tried to exercise his authority and to do what is right and proper. That has led to the decision to kick him out. He was determined to do what is proper, what is right, and restore to the cash waterfall mechanism, such that if anybody wanted to buy fuel, it will reflect in the cash waterfall mechanism. We'll know those behind the procurement of fuel so that we can track it. But he was asked to exit, and unfortunately, he's exited. And that is why he cited personal reasons for his decision to exit. But the painful thing is that by the end of the year, we'll have a debt of about $480 million on account of light crude oil. Meanwhile, Tullow has put together a proposal to government to ramp up the production of gas by an additional 100 scuff. That will be enough to meet our requirement. The government has not responded positively, and so as a result, there's a deadlock, and we will continue to procure light crude oil. This month, they've not been able to procure enough light crude oil, and so there's a deficit of about 500 megawatts, leading to the current load shedding that we are experiencing.
So you're saying that we have a problem. We're solving the problem with the procurement of crude at $40 million a month. This is not going through the cash waterfall mechanism. However, ECG is paying for this crude, or is expected to pay for this crude, with money that accrues under the cash waterfall mechanism. Although the purchase is not going through the cash waterfall mechanism. It's gotten to a point where the MD thinks that things must change, and he obviously has had to leave. And we're shedding load because we've not been able to procure $40 million worth of crude. And you also say that there appears to be an alternative of a ramping up, which has been presented to government, but government has not heeded to that, ostensibly because government is rather interested in the procurement of crude at $40 million a month. Is that a point you're making?
Precisely so. Precisely so. And not just that. Addo has been supplying gas, and since January to date, not even $1 has been paid to Addo. You can cross-check from Addo. Please cross-check from Addo. ENI has also been supplying gas. Indeed, ENI, the ENI floating storage unit, which is the FSRU, has an integrated gas processing plant as part of the FSRU. Now, FPSO, floating storage and production and offloading unit. As we speak, ENI has not been paid. And so ENI has drawn down on the guarantee to an extent that out of the 500 million, the guarantee is now 120 million. They are threatening to withdraw the remaining 20. Once they draw down the remaining 20, it means that technically Ghana is in default. It will affect the World Bank guarantee, and it will affect all guarantees provided by the World Bank. So as we speak now, ENI has reduced its supply of gas due to non-payment of gas. This is because all the monies accruing to ECG, a chunk of it is channeled into the procurement of light crude oil to the detriment of the payment of gas, culminating in shortage of gas supply. And now, because of the shortage in gas supply, some of the thermal plants are unable to run, and we are low because of the gas shortage.
Now, JJ, I have here a press release from GridCo, and it reads, interruption in power supply. The Ghana Grid Company Limited, GridCo, and the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, wish to inform the public that due to a challenge at the Ghana National Gas Limited Company, GNGC, gas processing plant GPP at Tuabo, gas supply for power generation has been limited, which has caused some customers to experience intermittent interruption in power supply. We apologize unreservedly for the inconveniences caused to the public as a result of this challenge. Engineers from GNGC are currently working to address the issue and restore full supply of gas. GridCo and ECG will continue to monitor the situation, which is expected to normalize once the issue at the plant is addressed. Now, GridCo says this is the problem that we have. You are talking about something else.
That is inaccurate. Even when the gas processing plant was being renovated or worked on, there was no load shedding because at that time they had some minimum amount of gas. Now, as we speak, gas is not coming, but more importantly, there's a shortage of light crude oil. And because there's a shortage of light crude oil, they are unable to produce enough power. Ghana Gas has its own challenges, but most of our plants are dual fuel plants. When we say they are dual fuel plants, it means that they can run both on light crude oil and they can also run on gas. But ask them, is it true that ENI has reduced supply of gas or not? And what is accounting for ENI's reduction of the supply of gas? Is it true that since January to date, we've not paid even $1 to Addo because they've used all the money to procure light crude oil? IPPs have just issued a threat, threatening to curtail the supply of power because about $1.2 billion of our standing liabilities has not been paid. The PURC itself, which is the regulator, recently came out with a letter to the president indicating that ECG was on the brink of bankruptcy. They also stated that ECG was not abiding by the cash waterfall mechanism and rather paying for light crude oil off the cash waterfall mechanism. Government of Ghana itself, MMDAs, it is in the report. This is not me saying it. Since August 2023, 200 million cedis every month, the Ministry of Finance has failed to pay that money. is ballooned to about 1.8 billion as we speak. If you do a rough estimate of the fresh energy sector liabilities, it takes you to almost $2.3 billion current liabilities that ought to be paid in order for the sector to function well. And so that is a fact. And sometimes my advice to Gridco, and the ECG MD was doing it, listening to politicians and telling us untruths. When there was load shedding, they told us they were servicing some transformers. But when we summoned them before the Mines and Energy Committee, they considered that they were shedding load due to inadequate fuel. And that report was signed by Atta. Honorable Atta is a member of parliament for Buakwa South, if I got it right. He's an MPP member of parliament. So he wouldn't sign a report which goes against his government if it's not true. So they should stop peddling falsehood, deal with the issue, restore integrity, take away the unnecessary political interference, and allow the regulator, the PULC, and the sector agencies to make independent decisions and serve the people of Ghana. Ghana gas alone cannot be the cause of the load shedding. We've had situations where Ghana gas completely shuts down for routine maintenance, and we knew they were going to do routine maintenance. So why did they not buy enough fuel to stop this period? I refuse this. It's not true, and it's false.
Now, JJ, I'm sure that you've seen the ASEP statement issued on the 19th of September. Now, there is something quite interesting, and it's in line with some of the things that you've raised. They focus on revenue collection. A part of the statement focuses on revenue collection by the ECG. And they say that ECG does not collect enough revenue to account for power sales. And they say that this situation has worsened over time, despite claims that the company is doing better. And they give us some data. They say between 2017 and 2022, ECG's losses increased from about 295 million cedis in 2017 to 9.7 billion in 2022. And they also say that recent reports published by the PRC show that under recoveries between August 2023 and July 2024 amounts to about 13.6 billion. And also the average collection rate within the period was an abysmal 43%. And they gave a table giving us month by month, August, September, October, up to July 2024. Now, there is an interesting angle. They say that this poor performance raises doubt about the efficiency of the touted digitalization efforts to bring more revenue through the new ECG Power app introduced in January 2023. And they say this new app replaced the ECG Power app, which had operated before December 2022. And the data, the monthly data, shows revenue performance has been worse over the period because on evidence, the switch of the apps was procurement driven rather than an efficiency measure. And they say they will explain why in subsequent sections, and a full review of the contract will be published soon. I'll be speaking with Ben Boakye after you to elaborate on this. But what do you make of this disclosure by ASEP with data?
Well, ASEP couldn't have put it better. And if you doubt it, go and look at ECG's financial statement. Their latest financial statement. In 2016, ECG made a profit of 316 million. From 2017, when they started this political interference, they started making losses. Their latest financial statement, 1 year, the loss they made was more than 10 billion. When we were leaving office, the losses was 22%. Today is more than 32%. No utility can survive with a loss of more than 32%. Kenya, Tanzania, and co. They do a loss range of between 2% and 6%. You are doing 32%. Aside that, forex losses, about 500 million. So clearly, the sector is collapsing. That app was supposed to double their revenue to about 2 billion. They are currently doing around 850 million. And so clearly, it hasn't solved the problem. The problem rather appears to be worsening and exacerbating. At this rate, Randy, at this rate, if we do not stop the bleeding, If we do not turn things around, the entire energy sector will collapse. And that is a fact. That is why we brought on the PDS deal with about $500 million from the United States government to reduce the losses to 8%. These guys went and brought their cronies and eventually told us that the people they brought ended up swindling them. And today, look at where we are. Even Ghana has been blacklisted. So Compact 3, which other countries are enjoying, Ghana has been blacklisted. So what they said is put out is true, is a fact, and the figures speak for themselves. These are official figures, either from ECG statement, from the cash water for mechanism, from PURC, from Gridco. You can check, even in the oil sector, because the oil sector has an impact on the power sector. Crude oil production has declined by more than 30%. That is unprecedented. ExxonMobil has exited Ghana, and Addo has exited Ghana. ENI is in court with the Republic of Ghana, and the sector is collapsing. Every sector in the energy sector is bleeding. And I hold a view strongly, that if we do not get this cabal out of power, investigate them through forensic audits, and hold those responsible, look, they'll continue to milk the energy sector, and the energy sector will collapse eventually.